Good morning, lovely people. How are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I think the biggest thing is I hope you're somewhere nice and cool. Boy, oh boy. I'm just going to have a little sit and a chatty catch up with you all this morning. And I think, well, the biggest thing that's been going on recently for me and millions of other people in the UK has been this heat. And I want to qualify and quantify it a little bit because I think, now the way I understand it from messages from some of you is that we're making the news in other parts of the world, which is kind of weird. It is weird, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, and I know, you know, I've said it probably 1,000,001 times myself when I've done a video, say I'm at the garden and I say, oh, it's really hot today, and I always qualify that by saying, yeah, I know it's hotter in other parts of the world and it's hotter for you guys, but it's all about what's normal for us, what's normal for you. And the last 2 weeks, actually since the beginning of July, we've been above average pretty much all the way through July, and in particular the last 2 weeks or so, there was a video I made, I think it was my chuck it all in video, where I was like, right, that's it, just plant everything and anything. And that day, put it this way, I often wear a hat when I'm in the garden when it's really sunny, and on that day, but then when I'm talking to camera, quite often I take the hat off just because I don't want that shadow from the peak, because then you can't see eyes and it's all about communicating. But I think that was one of the videos where I actually left my hat on because it was just so hot and bright. And then subsequently you saw when I did the tour, which I think was about the 10th of July, I even had my sunglasses on. Goodness me, and cream and all that. So it's not just about the fact that we've had this record on Tuesday of, in London it was 40, I think 40.2, 104 in London, but the highest was a village out in, is it Lincolnshire, at 40.3. It's not just about Tuesday being particularly hot, really hot, but it's kind of been building. And that's one of the issues for me here in this flat. Is the great thing for me in winter is I can save a little bit on my energy bill because I face south and I've got this mansard roof, so I've got a flat top to the roof like this, and then the mansard section, so it's like that on the front, exactly the same on the back. This front elevation is at the perfect pitch to catch all of the sun's rays. If you were setting up solar panels, this would be the perfect pitch for them, my roof. So the top of my roof is black, it's a pitch roof, and then the side, the mansard bit, that's black. It's Welsh slate, so it's, you know, it's black. Again, absorbs all the rays and, you know, heats up. So, and also then the window, because I've got the window, it's south facing, the sun on that. So yeah, in the winter it's great. I can, if it's a really sunny day, that's enough to warm the flat without me having to put the heating on. Brilliant. But what that means in the summer, excuse me, wriggle, is this flat gets hot. There's no two ways about it, and it builds. And then even at night, when the temperature drops and I open all the windows, let a good draft through, it doesn't cool down that much in the night before the heat of the next day comes, and so it builds it. So it gets warmer in here than it was the day before, and then the next night it's dropping, but not as much as it dropped the previous night. So you can see it just kind of builds. It's like 2 steps forward in the day, 1 step of cooling at night. 2 steps forward, 1 step, 2, 1, 2. So yeah, it gets really hot up here, and on Tuesday, the highest the temperature got in my flat was 39.8, which is, I'm sorry I'm reading this, I just don't know Fahrenheit. I know, and and I guess in a way I'm mostly speaking to you lovely folk in America about this. So it's 103.6. 103.6. It's, yeah, it's pretty intolerable. And I think it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it had got to 35, which is 95. I was running with, I was just dripping. I was trying to do some sewing on the machine, and my face was running with sweat so much, it was coming into my eyes, that I put a bandana on. So I had this kind of, I was doing my sort of John McEnroe impression, or should I say, my Rafa Nadal impression, with my bandana on to stop the sweat running into my eyes. But my hands, my arms, it was getting to the stage where the fabric was just sticking to me. And I thought, oh, I've had enough, I'm going to pack up for the day. Now, in fairness, what I've been doing for the last about 10 to 14 days or so is getting up really early. I hate it. Getting up at about sort of between 5 and 6 and getting on with my day in the cooler part of the day. Great. I'm trying to adjust I'm trying to go from being a night owl to a morning lark. I've come to the conclusion that it is just not possible to change which bird you are, still a night owl, because, you know, I'm exhausted. I've tried going to bed at 10, 11. I just don't sleep. I'm wide awake. I'm a night owl. Woohoo! So yeah, I'm a bit delirious, I think, from lack of sleep and overheating. But so by packing up work at 2 o'clock, I thought, you know what? I've actually worked sort of 7 or 8 hours already. I don't feel too guilty about packing up. And frankly, I was at the stage where I was so floppy, I couldn't think straight. So one of the reasons I want to mention this today, firstly, is to reassure everybody that I'm absolutely fine. You know, I'm a big grown-up girl. I know how to look after myself. Though this is very unusual, such extremes of temperature are unusual for London. It does get hot up here each summer. When I move to a ground floor flat, it won't be an issue anymore. But yeah, it does get hot up here. Plus, I've travelled and worked in hot places. You know, I was in Montenegro and Serbia for 6 weeks in the end, was it? I think it was 6 weeks. We were supposed to go on to Kosovo, but then I couldn't get a visa. Anyway, so I was over there working, and I think it was sort of just after, it must have been about the second week of July we went, so I was there July and August. It was belting hot. And at that time, where I was on the coast, the Croatians controlled the water supply. They were still like this at each other, and they were only turning on the water supply between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. That's the only time you could get water. So it was hot and water was limited. I looked after myself. So yeah, please don't worry about me. Like I say, I'm a big grown-up girl. I can look after myself. And I would like to think and like to hope that any of you who've been watching the videos for a while now will know that, you know, I'm a practical lass. Yeah, occasionally I get knocked back by something, but I don't get knocked down. And even if I do get knocked down, I get back up again. Someone was reminding me, I mean, she meant it kindly, but reminding me to, you know, keep my fluids topped up and need to consider replacement fluids. And I was thinking, that's like telling a vet not to leave their dog in a car when it's hot. It's kind of mildly insulting. You know, I was an HDU nurse where, you know, fluids were absolutely part of the bread and butter of my work. And with really sick patients, their fluid balance can go off and their electrolytes can go off so easily. So yeah, I know, I know about that. And actually I did do some fluid replacements both on the Monday and the Tuesday, because I was drinking absolute gallons and gallons, but I wasn't weeing very much, sweating loads but not weeing much. So it's like, right, okay, I am losing through sweat. The great thing about weeing and our kidneys is before all that waste actually comes out, our kidneys are processing it and deciding which bits to keep and which bits to get rid of. It's a very fine balance, and kidneys work great at doing that. But when we're sweating, there's no system during sweating for the body to say, oh, hang on, we're losing a bit too much of that, keep hold of it. Oh, we've got too much of this, get rid of it. It just goes. So yeah, I did some fluid replacements. Like I said, you know, I'm a grown up, I'm sensible. I've been around quite a long time, and I've been in some very, very tricky situations in my life on my own and got out of them. So it's all fine. But one of the reasons I wanted to mention this today was because I saw a report on the news and it did my nut in. It really, really made me cross. They had some reporters out and about in London on Tuesday morning. Vox popping people, you know, when they stick a microphone at a member of the public and say, what do you think of the heat? And they were in Trafalgar Square, which is a tourist spot in the centre of London, and loads of tourists there with their feet in, it's sort of a shallow basin of water where the big fountains of Trafalgar Square sort of spill their water into. So people sitting around the rim with their feet in the water. I thought, oh, that looks so nice, feet in water. And then they interviewed one woman, not from the UK, and she said, well, this is perfectly normal for us, so actually we're all laughing at you making a big deal of it. And it was that phrase that got my giddy goat. She said, we are laughing at you. And I had this moment of spite when I just thought, you know what, I hope the air conditioning in your hotel breaks tonight. I hope you experience this with no aircon. And that's the bottom line in this country. We are not set up for heat. Historically, we are a cool and cold, damp country. Our homes are built for keeping heat in and damp out. Our infrastructure is not built for 40 degrees. So yeah, it was a big deal because we don't have any coping mechanisms. There's nothing we can do to deal with that heat. For instance, you know, all our trains stopped running because the way our tracks are engineered, there's a 45 degree centigrade. There's a 45 degree adjustment. So our tracks are engineered to be working and safe down to -10 degrees and up to 35 degrees. And so people might say, oh, well, they have trains running in Dubai and it's 50 degrees. Why can't you have it in London or England? Well, the fact is, yes, they do have their tracks. They have their tracks engineered to cope with that heat. But their tracks wouldn't be able to cope with a freeze, you see? So that's what is becoming the issue in the UK now, is we are still getting cold in winter. And I know there are people out there who are now going to say, listen, the bottom line is this, stop competing with your temperatures. I know there are places in the world that are colder than England, of course there are. And there are places in the world that are hotter than England. But it's this swing. We're set up to cope with frosts and hot days. We're not set up to cope with boiling hot days. So there's no expansion room for the metal of the tracks, so the tracks buckle. So of course they have to stop running the trains. It's not safe because a buckled track will lead to a train being derailed, possibly. Things like signalling, the signal boxes and the signal wiring, it's all electronic these days, they were melting because they've been built to withstand frost, not 40 degrees. You get the picture now. Likewise are the tarmac on our roads, the tarmac at our airports. And now I didn't know this, so I had to find out about it, but apparently it's to do with the binding agent. I thought all tarmac was the same. Apparently it's not. But that binding agent can withstand being frozen, whereas in hot countries it's a different binding agent which can withstand the much higher temperatures. So which way do we go? Do we keep protecting our roads from being damaged by frost, or do we start to protect them from being damaged by searing temperatures? You know, it's still, at the moment, we're still more likely to be frozen than we are to be boiling. But I think the biggest one, and I think folk are starting to realise this now, is we just don't do air conditioning. Why would we? We're a cold country. Why would we have air conditioning to cope with heat? We don't have air conditioning in our homes. We don't have air conditioning in our schools. We don't have air conditioning in our shops. We don't have air conditioning in our hospitals, in our churches, on our public transport, in our offices and places of work. We don't have aircon. I mean, of course, a few shops do, and a few slightly forward-thinking offices do, but generally speaking, there is no button you can press to make life more comfortable. You know, not even at night, because I know some friends in hotter countries, they say we don't run the aircon in the day, but we do run it at night to help us sleep. And I think that's the biggest thing that folk outside of the UK haven't been able to understand or imagine. Yeah, and that is why this has been a big deal. It's been a big deal because people are in their homes in 95, 100 degrees and getting no respite. And when the temperatures are that hot, that's not good for our bodies. It does bad things to our bodies. So yeah, people can get ill, people can die in those kind of temperatures. I know a few people have suggested, oh, why don't you go to your designated cool space? We don't have designated cool spaces. You know, there's a map which shows you public buildings in London with air conditioning, but they're all in the centre of London. You know, it's the museums and art galleries and that sort of stuff. Even like locally, the pubs don't have air conditioning, the restaurants don't have air conditioning, my library doesn't have air conditioning. So I know that a lot of folk were getting, you know, a bit concerned for me the other day as it was getting hotter and hotter, like, oh, go and spend the day at the library. What's the point? It's just as hot in the library as it is at home. So yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of lay that one down, because I think there has been a bit of competitive temperature stuff going on. It's like, yeah, you know what, you live in a hotter place than me, great, well done, here's your medal for being in a hotter country, but you've got aircon. It's all the difference. It's like, so okay, here we go. I'm trying to think of, okay, Florida, because I know quite a few of you are from Florida. I don't know Florida, I've never been across the pond, but I think it's one of those places where it's warm all year round, isn't it? I think it's warm even in winter. Yeah, because doesn't Judge Judy live in Florida? Because she's, isn't it one of those, the Golden Girls, that was Florida, wasn't it? It's like one of those, it's kind of like the joke, isn't it, that old people go and move to Florida because it's warm, so it's nicer on their joints. Anyway, so yeah, if you imagine living in Florida, you've got your aircon, of course it is. So I want to try and make you picture now why this was a bit unusual. Because that's the bottom line of what happened, is it's not normal for our country. Is imagine it's February or March in Florida. What's your temperature going to be like at that time of year down there? I don't know, somewhere in the mid-60s, maybe 70? I don't know. Imagine if for 2 weeks the temperatures dropped really dramatically. They went to freezing, and then for a couple, so you have a whole week where the temperatures drop, then you get snow, and then you've got a foot of snow, and temperatures are really well below freezing now. And let's just imagine none of you have any way to heat your home. You don't have a fireplace, you don't have radiators, central heating, you have zero ability to heat your home. Why would you? Because you live in a hot place. But now here you are, you're 2 weeks with temperatures below freezing, your pipes are freezing, You're shivering in your home. You have no way to heat your home. You don't have snow tyres or snow chains for your car. You don't have ice shoes, you know, your strap-on, it's like crampons, but for just, you know, for being in town, not for being up a mountain. So you can't get out and have a walk because you'll fall over, or there's big snow drifts. You're simply not set up for it. You've got flip-flops and shorts. You have no winter clothing. You don't even have a coat. But worse, you're in your home and you're shivering. Even with blankets and duvets and stuff, you just grab everything you can. You're shivering because you have no way to heat your home. Why would you? Why would you have a heater in your home? It's never cold. So yeah, that's the analogy for what's just happened in the UK. So yeah, that woman who was vox popped in Trafalgar Square who laughed, she said, "We're laughing at you making such a big deal." And I've actually had people messaging me to say, "Why are you all complaining about the temperature? It's nothing." You know what? It is something if you don't have any infrastructure or mechanisms to deal with it. Anyway, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to go on so long. But, one of the great distractions for me, I've been loving this. So the way my day has been working is get to the garden, try and get to the garden at 6, half 6, sometimes it's been 7, stay in the garden until about 9, which gives me time to do the watering, that takes about an hour, and then do another job for an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. There's been a little bit more, I don't think you've seen the last few bits of plugging gaps. What else have I been doing in the garden? I don't even know now, it's all a blur. But that's been kind of like the start to my day, sort of 6 till by the time I get home 10. A nice 4-hour chunk that's go to the garden, do the garden, get home. Then once I'm home, I'm doing, sometimes it's boring, admin stuff. I'm still trying to play catch up on all sorts of things that I've not managed to do this whole year because, annus interruptus this year has been, hasn't it? It'll be interesting when I get to the very end of this year to reflect on the year, to think, have I managed to catch up with everything? I'm still very much playing catch up. But yeah, there's been all sorts of sitting down jobs, sewing. I've been doing a bit of sewing for other people. The shop, there's always ongoing stuff with that. Just stuff, the stuff I do. But what's great is, while I'm doing my stuff, is having the sports commentary on in the background. I'm such a happy bunny with the summer sports. Obviously we've had Wimbledon, and this year I've missed all the other tennis. Just either it was on when I've been ill, or it was on but I was sort of in the garden all day every day trying to play catch up. So it was really lovely to get a bit of Wimbledon. Wasn't particularly interested in the men's Wimbledon this year. The 2 finalists, I don't like either of them. The women's, I always enjoy watching the women's, and I thought the final was, you know, really exciting and fun. I absolutely loved seeing Serena back again. That woman, she will not give up, will she? And it was, I mean, that was a close game. I don't know if anyone saw it. I won't go on too much, but it was a really close game, and it was astonishing because it was her first championship game in 364 days. She hadn't played a game since last Wimbledon. She's a She's an absolute maniac. She's amazing. She's my hero. I love Serena. So that was great. And then we've got the Tour de France going on. And okay, so the Tour de France this year has been so close, so exciting, bonkersly so. I think this is the best Tour de France ever. And that's without a Brit in the yellow jersey. You know, all those years. Actually, the year Wigo won, it was the first time a Brit had worn the yellow jersey. When was that? 2000 and... 2011, 12 was it? Anyway, it's the first time a Brit had ever won the Tour. So that was a mega exciting year. And then there were all the Froome years. And then when G won in 2018, it's always really exciting when you've got a Brit winning. But never mind that. I think, yeah, I cheer the Brits on. But one of the things I love about the Tour de France is it's not raced by nation. It's very much raced by team and individuals. So it sort of neutralises your championing of the competitors. I couldn't think how to put it then. Yeah, it's like watching as a neutral. You can just cheer for everyone. It's been brilliant. It's been dead exciting. But what I'm really, really, really excited about is, and this leads me to talk about a couple of other things, is this year for the first time in, it's about 32 years or so, there is going to be a women's Tour de France. Enfin! That's French for finally. I mean, how, you know, come on. There are so many amazing female cyclists. Why is it taking so long? It's crazy. Funding. The slight disappointment is it's only over 8 days. I don't know, maybe it's 7 stages in 8 days rather than the men's, which is 21 stages over 22, 23, 24 days. They have 2 rest days. They had a transfer day this year. But anyway, I'm so delighted to see now in my lifetime as an adult, this is what I want to speak a bit about today, is about, you know, I'm seeing change in my lifetime and I'm going to get emotional. It's amazing. Okay, hang on a sec. Composure. On the one hand, it feels amazing, but on the other hand, it feels like, well, duh, yeah. I mean, this should have happened decades ago. It does, right. I might get slightly damp eyes, excuse me, but it's important stuff. So yeah, Women's Tour is back. Unfortunately, for any Brit fans, I don't know which British riders are going, but Lizzie Dinan, who some of you may remember as Lizzie Armistead, who came second, won the silver at the 2012 Olympics in London. She won silver on the roads of London. And I don't know if there are any of you, because I know a few of you do live in London, any of you who are keen cyclists may have even done the route. I know two of my plot friends, one of them, her husband has done that route. He said it nearly killed him. And then I've got another plot friend, he and his wife are both really keen cyclists and they've done it. Of course they have. I mean, they're both, I don't know, late 60s and they are fit as fleas. They are wiry. They've got that cyclist's wiry frame to them. Anyway, so Lizzie won't be racing because she's well preggo. She's about to, you know, she's been out there commentating and every time they cut, like at the end of the race when they cut to the studio and they're doing their little pundit chat at the end, I was thinking, Lizzie, I think you should sit down, babe, because I think you're about to drop. She's huge. Anyway, so that's really exciting news. It's been a joy. It's been an absolute joy to see the Euros in the football this summer. This is women's football, no less. Now, I haven't been able to watch any of the games, but I've been hearing, listening, and occasionally tuning in for just a few minutes. So the match the other night, tuned in for extra time. Nerve-wracking. But what I wanted to say about that was, you know, we've come a long way. So we're having these major championships now for women. Brilliant. We've come a long way in that we're now packing stadiums out for women's matches. We've come a long way because we're now televising these matches. You know, in the same way as, for instance, in 2012 when we had the Paralympics in London, that was the first time, I don't know how it is in everybody else's countries, but 2012, you think, my God, why is it taking so long? 2012 was the first time ever that the Paralympics had proper TV coverage. So instead of just having like half an hour somewhere in the day to say this is what happened at the Paralympics, you could have hours and hours and hours of live coverage. Brilliant. You know, it's actually women's sports and disability sports, in a way, we're kind of, you know, in a similar route. Disability sports has got a long way to come as well. But for instance, at Wimbledon, we now get shown the wheelchair matches. Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid, isn't it? It's always Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid. Anyway, yeah, so the delight of the women's football, what has just made me joyous, utterly joyous, is to see the stadiums are packed. That's great, but they are packed with girls and young women. I mean, there are men there too, but a football stadium packed with little girls and young women screaming, chanting, and just loving it, this party carnival atmosphere. It's amazing. The reason I love that so much is, as a woman going to a footy match, I've always found it really, a men's football match, I've always found it really intimidating. That may be my own issues up here, I don't know, but when you're surrounded by thousands of drunk men shouting, and it's this kind of, you know, it's very guttural noise that comes out. Yeah, I have found it really, really intimidating, and enough to kind of put me off going to matches, to be honest. So it's been wonderful to see a fantastic, amazing sport, football, enjoyed by some really, really young girls, actually, in what appears to be a sort of a safe and inclusive environment. Oh, loving it, loving it, loving it. And it got me thinking, oh my goodness, right, how long have I been chatting? Anyway, let's finish this off, because it is important. It got me thinking about, now, although I'm talking about sport, in a way, the sport's just an analogy for life, isn't it? I'm always saying that, how I love sport, but what I get from sport is so often it's lessons I apply in life. I've talked about it before when I give myself my para slap. You know, if I'm getting on the cusp of being a bit self-pity and a bit like, I can't do it, I can't do something, I think about those Paralympians training through their pain and getting out there and winning medals, and even the ones who don't win medals, and I think, you know what, Vivi? Shut up and get on with it. Paraslap. But yeah, it got me, the Lionesses in particular, and I was thinking, wow, that's massively changed, even in the last 10 years or so. What hasn't changed, though, it's only the beginning. This is only the beginning of what needs to change. Because I was thinking about, and I was thinking, I don't know what the manager of the Lionesses, the England squad, I don't know the manager's name. I'd know it for the blokes, because I'd be seeing it all over the press. I'd hear it in the news. You know, it's by osmosis you learn these things. I would have known the names of the guys in the England squad. I don't know the names of the Lionesses. Alex Scott is the only one I know, but she's actually retired from, I think she's retired from international, but I only know her because she now works as a pundit, so I hear her name more. Yeah, it's a good start. But in my lifetime, I jotted some numbers down. This is some crazy, crazy stuff here. Now, my own passion, sport passion, as in the one that I take part in, the one that I've taken part in most over my life and loved, is running. I adore running. Started running at school, just found I had this natural ability and joy from it. Not sprinting, can't sprint, don't make me go fast, I can't go fast. Maybe part of my joy of running was because I found school such torture that if it was a PE lesson, it was like, you're doing cross-country running today, it's music to my ears, because it meant I could just get out there and just get away from everybody, just go running off in the woods, up and down over the old slag heaps. It's an old coal mining town, loads of slag heaps, but they're all kind of rewilded is the word we'd use now. Back in the 80s we wouldn't have said rewilded, we would have just said stuff's grown on them. But yeah, up and down over the old coal slag heaps, down the river, up through the woods, round and round. And I would just... So we had a circuit that we were supposed to do, but the circuit was only... Oh gosh, it was only a couple of miles. I used to go off circuit, and for the rest of the class, it would take them the whole PE lesson to do that one circuit. I used to just go off on my own, go off circuit, run further. I'd know... roughly, it's like, oh, I need to start heading back to school now because it's going to be the end of the lesson. But yeah, I loved it. But here's the crazy thing. Women and running. 1,500 metres is to me, is sort of, it's a sort of like a bog standard benchmark, isn't it? 1,500 metres, old money, the mile. It's like the blue ribbon, to me it's the blue ribbon event, not the 100 metres. 1,500 metres. I've loved over the years the 1,500 metres, and if you're a Brit, if you're around about my age, you'll remember the excitement in the early 80s of the rivalry between Coe and Ovett, and then along came Crammy, and I've just suddenly forgotten his name, Peter Elliott. Sorry, that's me Geordie. That's bad, I'm really sorry. You know, we've had a long tradition in this country of the 1,500 metres, the mile. Chariots of fire, I mean, come on. So we have a long history of the 1,500 in this country, but it wasn't until, oh my goodness, this is crazy, 1972 was the first year that a woman was allowed to run the 1,500 at the Olympics. Can you imagine it? 1972, that's in my lifetime. So until 1972, oh no, don't let the women run that far, their uteruses might fall out, they'll damage their baby organs, don't let the women run! I mean, what did they think was going to happen to us? Did they think we were going to just collapse? I don't know. Anyway, so 1972, but that was early enough. I was only a toddler at that stage. Obviously I hadn't started running in 1970, apart from running away from trouble from my mum. So that wasn't really part of my psyche. So by the time I was watching and enjoying the Olympics I think 1980 was the first Olympics I properly watched and enjoyed. In 72 and 76, I'd watched the gymnastics at both, because I was gymnastics mad. Olga Korbut, loved her. But yeah, so in 1980, just coming into my teenage years, I wasn't aware that women weren't supposed to run until a few years before. So that's 1972. Then, the next big change, the marathon, the women's marathon. Now, again, all of us Brits were all familiar with Paula Radcliffe and her crazy running style that looked so uncomfortable. God love her. She tried to correct it, and it took more energy to not do that than to just let it happen. The first time that women were allowed to run a marathon at the Olympics, 1984. I mean, that seems crazy to me. So in 1984, I was, 16, 17, loving my running. I'd go running on my own. So that's the first time I would have seen someone, a woman, running that distance and thinking, oh yeah, that's a role model for me. So glad things have changed. This is really crazy. Okay, pole vault. The first time women were allowed to pole vault, 2000. I mean, it just seems mad, doesn't it? But this is perhaps the maddest one. it has taken until 2008 for women to be allowed to compete in the 3,000 metre steeplechase. I just don't understand. I think for my generation, I think it's a really interesting time because, you know, I'm sure our mums, I'm sure some of you out there who are older than me, maybe even old enough to be my mum, will be looking down on what I've been able to do in my life and think, Vivi, you have no idea, you know, you went to university, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal in terms of, woo, she's clever enough, but it wasn't a big deal in the idea of a woman staying unmarried and independent and going to university, you know, contraception, all of that for my generation. But I now look at the next generation down and even the new generation coming and thinking, you know, wow, you don't know, you know, when I was young, I wasn't allowed to run more than 1,000 metres officially. It is bonkers, isn't it? And that's what I mean about how I think, you know, I think we've come a long way, but there's still a distance to go. And it's one of those things where, you know, I don't mean this as some kind of, you know, women's lib feminist rant, but I think, you know, as a woman, it's part of my duty to keep speaking up for other women. I'm not going to get into politics and what goes on in the rest of the world and what is still happening to women that shouldn't be happening. But the fact is, yeah, it feels like such a positive, incredibly positive change to see a football stadium full of little, I'm going to get emotional again, to see a football stadium full of little girls screaming for their favourite player. It seems hard to imagine, but it's happening. That's great. And hopefully, you know, each generation of us women who've spoken up for ourselves, who've said, no, that is not acceptable, that is not okay, we can keep passing that baton down until, you know, every girl is safe and every girl has the same opportunities as every boy in her class. Yay! Yay for the Tour de France for women, and yay for women's football, and yay for little girls in sports stadiums screaming in joy and not batting an eyelid at their surroundings. It's fab, isn't it? All right, my lovelies. Well, that was... Oh, I should just say, I've still got my birthday cards out. I've got some here, mantelpiece in the window. Thank you, lovely people. It's like my birthday month. I don't have a birthday, I have a birthday month. That one just came... Oh, where's my finger? Just came a couple of days ago from Vicky. Vicky in America. Thank you so much, lovely. Oh my goodness, it was such a lovely surprise. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, my birthday's over. And then, oh, that arrived. And it's like, oh my goodness, your gift, so lovely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to have to take them down in a couple of days. No, where are we in the month? I don't know where we are in the month. I'll have to take them down soon. Don't want to. Yeah, what an odd month. Hot. Trying to adjust my days that I work really early in the morning, which my body doesn't like. And the reward of just having really, really great, inspiring sport to get involved with. You know, I think... Just a final word on that. I know I talk about sport from time to time, and sometimes I talk about it quite a lot. And I know there's loads of you who are out there who aren't into sport. But I hope that I talk about sport in a way that's not about the actual sport itself, but about the kind of, like I said, those sort of life lessons and joys they bring. And for me, in a way, it's... sharing it with you, sharing my joy, my passion is sort of my way of saying, for me, sport is incredibly good for my mental health. It's brilliant for my mental health. Sport is it's a great distraction. It's a great distraction from pain. If I'm having a really bad pain moment, listen to some sport. I get so wrapped up in it, I forget the pain. It's a great distraction from, you know, other stresses in life. Yeah, so it's a great distraction. It suits my nerdiness. I love statistics. I love numbers. I love averages. I love history. Who was doing, you know, and all those kind of things. So it just really suits me to look after my mental health. Now, that wouldn't be the case for everyone. Of course not. I think the point is, if you can find something in life that you love, and you recognise, actually, this is something that is really good for my mental health. Doing this, or watching this, or listening to this, or following this, or whatever involvement it is, if you recognise that that bolsters you, it makes you feel good, it releases endorphins, whatever it is. If you recognise that doing that thing is good for your mental health, then you can kind of have that on the back burner, have it on reserve for times when you can feel if your mental health is slipping a bit, if you're getting a bit stressed, a bit blue, whatever it is to say, you know what I need? I need a dose of this thing. You know, for some people it may be following the soap operas, I don't know. You know, maybe record all your favourite soaps so you can rewatch them. You know, I've no idea what works for you. But if you identify something that does just help hold you up when, you know, in tougher times, recognise it and say to yourself, you know what, I can go back to that, I can dip into that during tough times. And, you know, mentally it hasn't been a tough time for me, you know, quite buoyant at the moment. Physically it's been a really tough time for me in terms of lack of sleep, early mornings, heat. It's been grotty. So the sport has been it's been a fantastic distraction. Right, you lot need to all, you know, go away now. Go away. I want to turn the radio on for today's stage of the tour. Can't wait. All right, lovelies. I'll see you all again really soon. I might not see you straight away for a little while. I've got tons and tons on my plate at the moment. Mostly it's personal stuff which isn't necessarily appropriate to share. So it might be a few days, maybe even a week. But you know what? I'll be back. All right, gorgeosities, please look after yourselves. Look after each other. Keep smiling. Keep giving your smile away, and you never know, you might just get one back. Cheerio.